30 seconds. That's how long the mole took to decide if I belonged. In that time, the emergency exit slammed, stale air slid over my face, and a headless mannequin seemed to turn, not the stand, the absence of a face angling toward the noise like it could listen. I should have left. I scanned my badge. I clocked in. Northbridge Galleria didn't fade. It was executed. Open at lunch, condemned by dinner, chains on the doors by night. The city called it a compliance issue. People said mold, asbestos, sinkhole. None of those explain a hush that settles like weight, like a crowd inhaled and forgot how to exhale. If you like true stories that start quiet and end with a scream you feel in your bones, stay. I'll tell you what happened the night the mall closed forever and why someone still answers its intercom after midnight. Before we dive in, subscribe and turn on notifications. If you want more real atmospheric horror, it helps more than you think. Okay, listen. They hired me because I could stay awake. That's what the supervisor said. Walk the loop. Keep vagrants out if they find a way in. Call if you smell gas. He didn't mention the listing read temp security, urgent, one night only. The email hit my inbox at 4:42 p.m. The mall's last official shoppers were pushed out at 5. I needed the money. I took it. Under the glass ribs of the skylights, my maglite cut a tunnel of white. Kiosks sat like docked boats. A phone case island, a sugared nuts cart, a Santa throne wrapped in shrink. Half the stores were papered from the inside. Fingerprints smudged at breathing height. Others were stripped shells with adhesive ghosts where vinyl logos had been. The dry fountain's coins glowed like old fish in mineral crust. You don't notice how buildings breathe until you hear them hold it. The HVAC was cut, but air still traveled in the ducts, pushing and pulling like a tide in a throat. My radio chirped without my touching it. My ring of keys, operations, scrawled on a cracked tag, jangled like someone else was walking with me. I started at the south entrance, past the former Cinnabon, sign gone, smell not, and paused at a directory map. Cheerful arrow, you are here. It lit up. Nothing else did. At 12:11 a ping sliced the hush. Mall ops. Welcome. No domain, just ops in Northbridge. Subject, shift started, empty body. The timestamp blinked twice. I looked back at the map. The blue dot moved, drifting along the schematic and settling exactly where I stood. The acrylic fogged as if someone exhaled on the other side. Then 3 taps from inside the map. Knuckles, patient. Hello? I said, to my reflection and to whatever kept time under the plastic. My radio hissed and spoke in a voice I hadn't heard since I was 8, and the nightlight burned out. Lower level, it said. The hiss turned wet, like breath dragged over a tongue that didn't fit the mouth. At the far end of the concourse, a steel grill unrolled itself upward without motor noise, revealing a slice of darker dark. Warm sugar and something metallic, pennies in a mouth, slid past my teeth. The blue dot drifted toward the opening, as if gravity had changed directions. I followed because the mall wanted me to, and wanting things was how either of us stayed alive. Beneath the opening, the terrazzo was dented in arcs where people used to run. I stepped through. The grill sighed back down, its teeth meeting with a soft final patience. Food court, my radio whispered, gentle as a lullaby. We're still open. My flashlight found overturned chairs, napkin dispensers, a dried spill sunbursting across tile. The Cinnabon case gleamed clean and empty, as if someone had licked it. In the center, a coin-op race car rocked without coins, creaking forward and back. When it tipped, the mirrored windshield threw a face at me that wasn't on my shoulders. I killed the beam. In the brief absolute dark, the mall exhaled. Chains ticked, vents flexed. Sign cables sighed. An escalator far below began to hum. My light returned to a blank windshield. Behind me, the directory pinged, cheerful, bright. You are here. The blue dot slid away from me, down to a level the map didn't show. The escalator that shouldn't have power begins carrying something up, footprints forming on the black rubber, one after the other, rising toward me. The footsteps reached the top without a person attached. The comb plate chattered. The steps leveled out. The rubber handrail kept moving like a treadmill for ghosts. On the glossy floor, damp ovals appeared. heel to toe, like someone had tracked in snow that melted on contact. They passed me, stopped at the Cinnabon counter, and angled toward the service corridor with the red exit sign that shouldn't have glowed and did. I trailed them because the mall had already decided that I would. The corridor smelled like warm sugar burned black, then something copper that had no business being warm. My radio crackled with voices stacked over each other like a bad PA check. Mall hours are, attention shoppers, clean up in... It wasn't nostalgia. It was playback, hungry for a mouth. At the end of the corridor, a door labeled Employees Only hung open a palm's width. Plastic sheeting inside tried to breathe. I slipped through. A narrow hall revealed stainless counters, a triple sink, boxes of branded napkins that should have been hauled out with the rest. And a phone. Bare, wall-mounted spiral cord. No dial tone when I lifted it. A voice, though, close enough to fog the earpiece. Welcome to Northbridge Galleria. We're proud to the syllable snagged like a sweater on a nail. I hung up. A maintenance map was pinned with tacks above the sink, a blueprint I didn't recognize, with a third concourse drawn in pencil beneath the two I'd walked. Someone had labeled it Promenade, after hours. Stores I'd never seen, Sundown Cinema, Night Watch, The Long Meal. The anchor box at the far end had a handwritten name, The Return Desk. The door behind me sighed. When I looked, the damp footprints were gone. In their place, the floor reflected a figure that still hadn't joined my shoulders. The reflection raised a hand, fingers too many, and tapped the glass front of the dessert case. I turned my head. The case beside me pinged once, and a small square of fog bloomed on the inside, low, like a child's breath. I leaned in. Letters appeared in the fog, as if written from the other side, with a fingertip you couldn't see. Don't clock out. I wiped the glass with my sleeve. The message spread thin, then beaded into nothing. My phone buzzed. No bars, no carrier. Email, Ops Northbridge, Mall Ops, coverage updated. Attachment, a schedule grid with my name in every slot. The note field. Overnight means until we open. We're closed, I said aloud to the phone, the glass, the somebody. You're closed, the intercom answered, muffled through the ceiling. Attention shoppers, extended hours tonight. Then, under the pre-recorded warmth, a second tone, human, unhappy. A woman trying to keep her voice level. If you can hear me, please don't make them angry. Walk like you belong. Count the stores. You'll know when the numbers don't add up. The speakers popped and died. I stepped back into the corridor and counted along the food court. 1 franchise. 2, 3 papered front, 4, 5 shuttered. Across the way, 6, 7, kiosk 8. On the far corner, where there had always been 9, a gap ached like a pulled tooth. In its place, a hallway that hadn't been there when the mall lived. The new hall sloped, not down but aside, like a rib that didn't match the rest of the cage. Lights inside were too bright and from the wrong decade, humming hard with mercury. At the end, another directory waited, same cheerful arrow. You are here, but the map's shape had changed. 3 concourses now, a third blue dot pulsed below the glass. Impatient. The mall PA clicks, and the same calm woman closer. Breathy whispers through a single speaker above the new hall. Don't look at them when they're between faces. Between faces. I didn't know what she meant until the mannequins began to move in the windows on either side of the slope. It wasn't walking, it was choosing. White torsos turned toward racks that weren't there, then toward me, then toward their own reflections, like they were trying identities on. The surface of their plastic seemed to ripple, matte in one breath, lacquered in the next, like it couldn't decide which version to keep. Walk like you belong, the woman had said. I put my shoulders into a bored security guard shrug and let my feet set a retail pace. Slow, unbothered, a little annoyed. The lights obeyed the rhythm, warming a step ahead, dimming a step behind. When I passed a storefront labeled The Long Meal, the smell of warm sugar collapsed into roasted meat and coffee gone to tar. A hostess stand waited with a laminated menu that never ended. Breakfast for dusk, second lunch, late dinner. Never dessert, a bell dinged. I didn't see a door move, but a shadow seated itself at the corner booth. The vinyl creaked. A child's handprint appeared high on the glass partition, sliding down, as if the arm that made it had forgotten gravity. I kept walking. The third concourse opened like a mouth. No skylight. The ceiling was acoustical tile, old enough to yellow in shapes that suggested faces if you stared too long. Stores I didn't recognize presented perfect displays of things no one could want. Clocks without hands, umbrellas stitched shut, shoes with soles curled to point backward. In the center, on an island of carpet that didn't match the tile, stood an information desk. No one there, a bell. A call button, I pressed it. The bell didn't ring. Instead, the mall breathed in, and every mannequin lifted its head. "Welcome to Northbridge," the intercom chirped, cheerful again. "How can we help you find your way back?" "My way back where?" I asked. "To when you felt like a shopper," it said. "Returns on the lower level." "I'm not—" I started, and the PA clicked off. My radio replaced it with soft counting. 1, 2, 3. It took me a second to realize the numbers weren't mine. They were from the email attachment, the schedule grid, the slots filling my night. When the counting reached 14, the radio said, "That's all the hours we have to spend." A directory kiosk blinked on. The plastic fogged. Letters wrote themselves backward, so I had to read them in the reflection. Look in the glass, not at them. The woman again, or the mall using her mouth. I angled my flashlight to throw a glare over the nearest display. In the reflection, mannequins were still perfect. In direct sight, their seams crawled as if stitched by impatient hands. The far anchor store had no brand, just white doors and a narrow return slot, like a library's. Above it, a sign in serif letters, "The Return Desk." The slot swallowed light. I took a step, and the tile under my boot dipped, soft as carpet. The second step squished like walking on wrapped meat. I stopped moving. That's when the first between face turned toward me. A window dummy, featureless, flexed in the glass. For half a breath it had my mouth. For another half, it wore a mouth I recognized from an old family photo, a smile I hadn't seen since the funeral. Then a third face, mine again, but older, with eyes that already knew what I was about to learn. The return slot coughed, and a paper receipt slid out with my name at the top. Time of purchase, 12:11 a.m., and a refund total that read, "Everything you've been." The receipt was still warm. Thermal paper, the kind that browns if you touch it too long. My name at the top, my hire date, my birth date, the mall's EIN like a social security number for a building that had learned how to file grievances. Under items, 1-1. Self, condition lightly worn. Under notes, eligible for store credit only. The subtotal read like a heartbeat on a monitor. The total said, "Everything you've been." I backed from the return slot, and the vestibule lights made that hospital flicker that isn't quite a strobe, but convinces your eyes you're skipping frames. The intercom pinged bright. "Our return policy has changed." "No receipt?" "No problem. We'll find one." A printer whirred somewhere behind the wall. I pictured a windowless office, stacked with shoeboxes full of me. "Walk like you belong," the woman had told me. I fixed my shoulders, tucked the receipt into my breast pocket, and swallowed the part of me that wanted to run until the skylights turned to stars. My radio hissed. Words surfaced like carp. Inventory. Reconciliation. Anchor store. I had a ring of keys with operations scrawled on cracked plastic. Anchors kept ships from going where they wanted. Anchors drowned. A sign to my left, black letters on brushed steel, Night Watch. The store's display was a wall of CRTs stacked 3 high, each playing a different camera angle of the mall. Some were empty concourses. Some were empty, but for mannequins that hadn't been there when I'd walked past. One showed a version of me, staring up at the monitor wall, my head cocked, lips counting. A second showed me already at the return desk, holding my badge like a departure ticket. "That's not me," I said, because denial is a survival technique. In the monitor version, I slid my badge into the slot. The screen ghosted to snow. A new title card blinked on, typed by a ghost intern. Transaction approved, a bell chimed. Not an alarm, retail nice. The security mirror in the corner, domed and fisheye, showed a crowd where I stood alone. Shadows filled the aisles, wearing mallwear from different decades, puffy jackets, graphic tees no one sells anymore, belts with too many holes. None of them had faces. In the mirror, their missing faces were replaced by faint reflections of stores, like the mall was trying to wear them back to life. Guest services, the PA breathed, softer. If you need assistance with returns, exchanges, or locating lost time, please proceed to guest services on the promenade. We are open all night. I didn't want to go. I went. The promenade felt wrong, in the way a healed bone knows a storm is coming. The tile listed not enough to trip you, just enough to insist you were at sea. The stores leaned subtly toward the center like listeners. Sundown Cinema sat shuttered, but light leaked under the grill like movie night in a basement. The long meal clinked with cutlery that didn't touch plates. On the corner stood a circular counter, dressed in pale laminate and corporate empathy, guest services. A bell the size of a coin rested on the counter. A rack of pamphlets fanned out beneath it, map, after hours, extended policies, safety in the event of closure. I pressed the bell, no sound. The pamphlets shuddered, as if a hand unseen had rifled them. One popped free and fluttered onto the counter. Safety in the event of closure. The trifold opened itself. Bolded at the top, do not clock out, subhead. If you end your shift before opening, all hours worked will be restocked. Restocked? I said, stupid as a customer asking if water is wet. A stapled insert slid out of the fold, an old memo with coffee rings. To all staff, after-hours inventory, and the anchor. The first line was redacted, heavy black bars. The second was not. The anchor holds the store in time. The anchor must be fed returns. A hand scribble in the margin, or it feeds itself. My radio clicked to life with a scratch of throat. The woman again, closer. Don't let them see you decide, she whispered. Between faces they're jealous, choosing hurts them. If you choose too loudly, they'll wear you until you stop. I looked down. My receipt had browned around the edges just from my heat. The total pulsed once, then bled into a new line. Restocking fee. 100%. I lifted my head because I didn't want to, and because the mall wanted me to. Across the promenade, the grill at Sundown Cinema rolled up without a motor, fold by fold like a wink. The trailer music drifted into the hall, strings too sweet, bass too small. A cardboard standee at the entrance held a poster with no faces, only silhouettes with shopping bags. Tagline, "We're still open." In the reflection on the poster varnish, I watched a man in a security uniform enter the theater and realize his uniform fit me perfectly. A paper ticket slid under my boot from the theater darkness. Catching on the tread, date 12/11, admit one, row return, seat anchor. The projector coughs once, and the light hits my chest like a target. The ticket clung to my boot like a warning label. I pried it off, cheap stock, glossy ink, admit one, row return. Seat anchor. The projector coughed, and the porthole beam painted dust outside the Sundown Cinema. Walk like you belong, I told myself, pushing through the rubber flaps. Smell, stale popcorn, citrus cleaner, damp coats. The green rating card overstayed. Usher lights traced footprints that weren't mine, drying as I watched. I followed, because the mall had already decided I would. Seat Encore waited dead center. The cushion shaped around my spine without moving parts, like a mouth learning a name. My radio softened into a human throat. Don't react, the woman whispered. They can smell the decision. The trailer rolled. Not a movie. Northbridge, as it had been, Carousel, Living Fountain, Cinnabon, Steam. Faceless shoppers drifted through. Then the frame stuttered, and everything on screen looked straight at me, despite having nothing to look with. The cheerful underscore grew teeth. Title card, The Return Desk, a Northbridge original. A gloved hand slid my badge to a slot. The slot ate it. Air tightened like an elevator stopping between floors. I'm not returning anything, I said. The speakers replied, all purchases are subject to availability of self. A laugh shivered through the rows, fabric settling, applause under a blanket, angle change from the porthole. My own crown, the way my ears pulled when I was afraid. A subtitle typed, "Customer accepts store credit." At the same instant, something cold tucked under my tongue, coin-shaped. Copper flooded my mouth. "Spit it out," the woman said, close enough to fog my ear. I didn't turn. I pressed the coin to the roof of my mouth until it melted into a heat that wasn't mine. On screen, doors opened onto a hallway of glass. Behind each pane, something paced. Back rooms I'd walked. Places I hadn't. Cribs lined like teeth. A break room with a clockless microwave. A loading dock where a square of night was cut out like a stamp. Each pane carried a deli ticket strip counting by itself. 92. 93, 94. When it rolled to 00, the projector deepened, wattage on absence. An usher appeared. Black vest, brass tag, flashlight that gathered light instead of throwing it. Tag, associate. The beam rested on my sternum like a fingertip. Ready to be helped? The usher asked in a voice sheared of age and gender. Looking, I said. Not ready. A side door yawned, velvet curtains tongued open. A hand-lettered sign, "In case of closure, do not leave." The woman's whisper threaded my hair. "If you exit, they'll think you chose. If you choose, they'll dress you." The screen went black. The mall breathed through HVAC that wasn't powered. The usher snapped. New words burned up. Opening hours resume at 12:11. My watch said 12:10. The minute hand trembled. I stood because the seat let me. The usher's non-light tracked me. "Count the stores," the woman breathed. "Get to guest services before the hour resets. Bring the receipt." I reached into my pocket. The thermal paper had browned to bruise color. A new line bloomed. "Restock to anchor. I don't want store credit," I told the dark. "I want cash back." The usher leaned close. "Starch smelled like rules. Then you need the person who opened the drawer." "Who?" "Manager on duty," the usher said. "She never clocks out." The side door sighed wider. Beyond the curtains, emergency lights cast brightness with no shadow. A counter waited with a till open, fingers resting on bills, like they were asleep. The brass tag on the figure behind it didn't say associate. It said manager, and below it, smaller letters with my last name. The projector behind me whirs to life. The screen shows a live feed of the counter ahead, except in the feed the manager looks up, meets my eyes and says, "Next," while her lips don't move in the hall. The hallway smelled like receipt paper as I stepped to the counter. On the live feed behind me, the manager said next, but here, under the fluorescence, her lips didn't move. The brass tag on her chest carried my last name. Below it, manager, returns, she asked. Voice from the ceiling, not her throat. Cash back. Cash requires drawer reconciliation. "Do you have your receipt?" The slip warmed in my pocket like a tongue. I set it down. Numbers rotated to face her. She watched the total pulse. A nail, too clean, tapped subtotal. "We can offer store credit," she sang. The ducks chuckled. "Credit keeps what's ours." Who's we? The drawer slid open by itself. Bills in obedient stacks, faces bleached to sameness, every portrait with my eyes. Coins lounged like little moons. Under the quarter rolls, a held breath. "Walk like you belong," the woman had told me. I leaned on the laminate like a bored employee. Checked the clock, scanned exits, looked past the person instead of at her. Between faces. "Don't let her see you decide." "Opening hours resume at 12:11, the manager recited. "It's already 12:11. In the only time zone that matters." My radio clicked. The woman's whisper braided the static. "Ask about the anchor. Ask who feeds it. Who feeds the anchor?" I kept my gaze on the drawer. Her smile widened a fraction, like a zipper thinking of splitting. "We accept all returns," she said. "The anchor keeps us open, and if no one returns, then the mall wears what it wants." The counter tremored, something walking beneath the tiles, testing joists like ribs. Little knocks traveled left to right. The PA hushed. The mall leaned to listen. "Manager," I said, the word like a coin. "Why is your tag my name?" In the feed, she met my eyes. "Because you clocked in. Clocking in is consent. You said you could stay awake. We are tired of sleeping." The drawer nudged forward. A bill crawled to the lip like a tongue. Fog wrote itself on the laminate. "Don't look at her hands." Between faces, the whisperer urged. "Watch the hands." I looked. Her hands weren't on the counter. They pressed from inside it, trying on the shape of mine. 10 fingers, then 11, then 10. Measured to fit, cash back, she said, bright. "Place your right hand on the scanner." No scanner, only laminate the color of warm skin. I didn't move. The mall loves motion, not refusal. Lights ticked down the promenade like a fuse. A directory pinged, cheerful, lying, "Last call for returns," the manager said. After this, restocking. For a heartbeat, the woman's voice arrived without distance. "If you put your hand down, she'll wear the part that makes choices," she said. "You'll keep walking, but it won't be you choosing." "What do I do?" "Trade," she said. "Give the anchor something else." The drawer inhaled. Quarters rattled. Beneath them, something wet shifted weight. Like what? Her pressed palms bowed the laminate. "Anything you've been." A printer coughed behind the wall. Fresh paper slid out. "Exchange authorization. Item. 1 right tender store credit notes. Do not clock out." "I want cash," I said. Her eyes brightened, catching flame. "Then open the anchor and count." "How?" The feed cut to a stairwell, unmarked door behind Night Watch, steps lacquered in penny footprints. Caption, "Anchor access, authorized manager only." Her tag glittered. "On the screen, so did mine. See?" She purred. "We match." My phone buzzed. "Ops Northbridge, coverage updated, my name in every slot." "Overnight means until we open." "When do you open?" "Whenever someone returns enough of themselves." The receipt browned at the edges. Ink weeping, restock to anchor. I tightened my grip on my keyring labeled Operations. The drawer jerked wide and spat out a second keyring. Same tag, same scratches, but the metal bled a fresh thumbprint that matched mine before I touched it. The twin keyring lay on the laminate like a mirror that could cut. Same tag, Operations, same gouge through the O, same bite mark I didn't remember making. The fresh thumbprint shimmered, identical to mine, and then, without me touching it, smudged, as if a pulse had just traveled through the metal. "Manager access," the entity sang with my last name. 2 keys, 2 versions. I pocketed the copy and felt it nestle against the original, like magnets agreeing. The drawer inhaled coin-cold air. Somewhere below the counter, something shifted again, wet, patient, counting. "Anchor access is behind Night Watch," she prompted, lips still and voice from everywhere. "Authorized personnel only." "I'm not your personnel," I said, breath low. "You clocked in." The fluorescent hum didn't waver. "Consent recorded." I backed from the counter, keeping my eyes above her wrists. Between faces, between hands. The security dome in the corner showed a crowd around me again. Malware from a dozen years, all faceless, all turning as I turned, like the building wanted my choreography to catch. The promenade receded, as if the tile were a treadmill, and I chose the wrong speed. Night Watch blinked its wall of CRTs, each screen a slightly different mall. In the top left monitor, I was already at the unmarked door, my shoulder pushing. In the bottom right, there was no door, just a blank wall that wetly remembered being one. I cut behind the counter. A safety poster curled off cinder block in case of closure. And there it was. A steel door painted mole beige, scuffed at the knob by keys that knew the way. Stenciled small, "Anchor access, authorized manager only." My radio hissed. The woman's closeness threaded the static. "Use the copy first," she whispered. "It will decide louder than you." I slid the twin ring out. The metal was warm, too warm. The key found the cylinder without help, like a tongue finding a missing tooth. When I turned it, the door didn't click. It sighed, seal breaking, breath moving, wet pennies and dryolent heat rolling over my face. Stairs stepped down in narrow, lacquered concrete, each tread faintly stamped with a date. My boot hit 12:09, then 12:10, then 12:11, repeated like a prayer that forgot other words. "Don't let them see you descend," the whisperer said. "They count falls." The CRTs above me snowed. I kept my light tight to my feet, and my shoulders bored guard loose. The hum below was mechanical but not powered. Something muscle-like turning, something with weight remembering circles. At the bottom, a landing opened into a room the mall hadn't shown on any map. No skylights, no tile, concrete walls ribbed with conduit that led nowhere. The anchor was not a machine you could name. It was a low carousel made of things that turned and shouldn't. Return belts, coin sorters, stroller wheels, the black rubber handrail from an escalator stitched into a loop. It moved without urge and made a sound like counting in a language that didn't need numbers. Around it, piles of returns, not items, selves. Work badges from stores that no longer existed. Security vests. Name tags with names half dissolved into other fonts. Shoes in pairs that remembered ankles. A mannequin torso with fingerprints browned into its ribs. Stacks of thermal paper receipts, edges heat-burned into petals. My receipt vibrated in my pocket. When I pulled it, the ink crawled into new lines. Restock to anchor tender. Identity discount. Opening hours, I circled the carousel, keys chiming like spurs. At the far side, a slot waited, twin to the return desk's mouth. Above it, a brass plate, store credit only. Beside it, smaller, hand-stamped crooked, cashback, manager present. Show the tag, the whisperer said. Her voice thinning like it had to travel through wet cloth. I lifted the copied key ring. The anchor slowed, almost eager. In its reflectionless surface, I saw myself at 3 angles, and none of them pinned to my bones. Trade, she urged. Not your hand, not your face. Something you can survive losing. What? I whispered. The carousel answered by spitting a single coin onto the floor. A mall token, logo eroded to a circle, weight ridiculous for its size. When I crouched, the concrete chilled my knees. Engraved faint at the rim, admit one. From the stairwell, footsteps started down, not mine. The pitch was wrong, too confident, too employee. The manager hummed in 2 keys, each a little like my name. Decision window, she sang. Between faces, the woman rasped, nearer and nowhere. If you pick wrong, they'll wear you until you agree. I looked at the slot, at the coin, at the receipts. My thumbprint pulsed through the twin ring. The anchor's handrail loop brushed my shins like something tasting. I stood, heart up in my throat where a coin had sat minutes ago. Cashback, I said to the room. Count with me. I slid the copy ring into the small manager slot. The anchor shivered, delighted. The light snapped off, and in the absolute black, a second set of my keys lifted from my other pocket and turned the original lock. Choosing for me as the manager's footsteps reached the landing. The dark fell like a lid. The anchor's breath went from hum to mouth, warm, close, brushing the hair on my arms. Metal kissed metal at my hip. The second ring turned the original lock with confidence that wasn't mine. Inside the machine, something smiled. Belts and teeth can do that. The copied keys held in their slot with a hush, as if waiting for a cashier to announce the price. Don't react, the woman whispered through static. Between faces, let them tire themselves. The stairwell filled with the manager's footsteps. Not heels, soles made for standing and saying no. The steps counted me like inventory, 12, 11, 10. I pressed my back to the wall and let the dark make me smaller than my outline. A relay clacked. The anchor rolled 1 inch. The air rolled with it, sweet and copper. Paper rasped somewhere close. The copied keys pulsed heat in my fingers. The originals in my pocket answered with a second heartbeat. Both locks engaged. Both choices true. The mall loves a sale where every tag says final. Cashback requires counting, the manager said from the doorway. Her voice came from the room now, not the ceiling. Count with me. She stepped in, the darkness shifting grey as if she wore light beneath her skin. A brass tag orbited my last name. She didn't touch the anchor. She held out her palm, an invitation to trust. Let the keys pick, I said, pretending calm. You said consent is clocking in. They clocked. A pause. Acceptable. We'll itemize. The escalator handrail loop hissed faster, rubber whispering like a sentence. Receipts leaned, a mannequin torso tilted, a stroller wheel turned. Drips found a pan. I matched my breathing to the belts. Trade, the woman urged. Pick what you can lose. I choose time, I whispered. Not memory. Not hands. The hours they scheduled without asking, the original keys turned their last click. A drawer inside the anchor slammed open, a sound from every retail job I'd ever had. Coins skated, then went still. The copy cooled like fever breaking. Tender accepted, the manager said. Hours only. We keep the faces that wore them. Grey light brightened at her wrists. Her hands weren't hands, but gloves the mall had stitched into my shape. She lifted the receipt from my pocket without touching me. The thermal paper inhaled. New lines appeared in heat exchange. Tender hours. Change due. Opening a panel scraped back. A drawer sighed out from the machine's side. Warm metal, penny sugar, stale breath. Take your cash, she said. My fingers found paper. Not bills, pages. Thin, library thin, each stamped with a blue date and an hour. Pay stubs made of time. I riffled them by feel and heard my 20s fall like cheap blinds. In the corner of each page was a small photo. Me, in different uniforms, eyes at different distances. Keep counting, the manager said, slightly breathless. If you stop, the drawer closes on whatever you are. I counted. 7, 14, 21. The copied keys purred in my palm. My mouth filled with that coin heat again, like the mole wanted to tuck another token under my tongue to pay the toll of leaving. Deeper, my fingertips touched glass. A small rectangle wrapped in cracked vinyl, an old employee ID, not from this mall. A dead grocery store's logo. My younger face, badly shaved. Title, overnight. Ah, the manager breathed. A bonus. I'm trading hours, I said. Not lives. They're the same unit here. The drawer shuddered, wanting to shut. Between faces, the woman said, suddenly clear. Decide quiet. I put the old ID in my mouth. Laminate shot my teeth. I held it there, jaw aching, and slid the book of hours into my jacket. The drawer inhaled, then hesitated, confused by a customer who wouldn't name the price. I yanked the copy ring from the manager's slot and slammed the originals in. The anchor screamed like a receipt printer fed a wet roll. Denied, the manager crooned, voice warping. Count, I said around plastic. One more, the anchor obeyed. Above us, the promenade lights began to tick back on, store by store, like a waking that didn't want to. Basement dawn seeped into the room. I spat the ID into my hand. The photo had changed while it was in my mouth. The face was hers now. Wearing my badge number, the belts beneath the anchor reversed direction, pulling inward, dragging everything toward a hole that hadn't been there before. While the PA above chirped, "Attention shoppers, doors opening now." The belts reversed, with a sound like breath being pulled back into lungs that never should have been filled. Everything on the floor, receipts, shoes, name tags, even dust, began to slide toward the sudden hole beneath the anchor. It wasn't large. It didn't need to be. Gravity bent like the mall had made its own rules underneath the tile. The PA above chirped through layers of static. "Attention shoppers, doors opening now. Please make your final selections." Final, as if exiting was a purchase. The manager didn't flinch at the dragging debris. She only stepped closer, hands folded like a retail saint. "When the anchor empties, the mall resets," she said calmly. New hours, new staff, new faces to wear. "I'm not inventory," I snapped, gripping the key ring so hard the metal cut. The hours I'd taken rustled in my jacket, warm as fever. The hole widened a fraction with each turn of the belts, like a throat learning to swallow. Inside, I heard escalators moving somewhere below ground, steps cycling endlessly in the dark. Northbridge never closed because of mold, I muttered to myself. It closed to digest. The woman's whisper slithered up through the vent. "Don't let it take the hours back. Get above it, run!" For once, I didn't overthink. I shoved away from the anchor, just as a gust of air pulled past me, hungry. A stack of thermal receipts lifted like birds and vanished into the hole. The mannequin torso followed, scraping concrete, its plastic bending like skin. The manager watched, smiling. "We don't waste what's been worn." I sprinted toward the stairwell. The copied keys in my hand vibrated hard enough to numb my fingers. The originals in my pocket felt heavier, anchoring me to this place. Behind me, the belts whined faster, the hole deepening with a wet pop like cartilage tearing. As I reached the first step, the intercom above cracked open with a sound like bone. The woman's voice came out raw and urgent. "Hurry! The mall thinks it's morning!" I took the stairs 2 at a time, each tread still marked with dates, 12:11 repeating like a drum. But halfway up, the dates changed. A 12:12, 12:13, 12:14. The steps were climbing into a future I hadn't lived yet. The air grew colder. The hum of the anchor below deepened into a growl. No longer mechanical, animal, hungry. The stairwell light began to flicker, not randomly, but in a pattern on, off, off. Morse. I didn't know Morse, but my bones did. I burst into the back of Nightwatch, slamming the door behind me. It didn't latch. The copied key in my hand was nearly too hot to hold, glowing faintly like iron. I dropped it. It hit the floor, didn't bounce, just sank into the tile as if the mall reclaimed it as its own. On the wall of CRTs, the feeds had all changed. No more empty concourses. Now every monitor showed crowds of shoppers pouring through the entrances. Laughter, children, bags, normalcy. Except every face was the same. Mine, dozens of me. Walking, shopping, smiling, dead-eyed into mannequins. "Welcome back to Northbridge." The PA sang brightly from somewhere just beyond the theatre hallway. "Extended hours begin now." I staggered into the promenade and froze. The mall looked alive again. Lights warm, fountains running, kiosks staffed, music playing from overhead speakers. Every storefront lit and polished. Not abandoned, not decaying, reset, but it wasn't the past. Because every employee I saw had my face. Some wore security uniforms. Some wore food court aprons. Others folded clothes in a Gap store that shouldn't exist. They didn't look at me in alarm. They looked at me like I was late for my shift. A small child tugged her mother's hand in front of Sunglass Hut. "Mommy, why are there so many of him?" The mother turned. She had my face too, and she smiled like a reflection that finally stepped out of the mirror. A familiar voice behind me, my voice, said softly, "You're the last one who still thinks he doesn't work here." That voice was mine, but older, or younger, or stripped of everything but confidence. I turned slowly. I stood there in a Northbridge security uniform, so crisp it looked ironed onto skin. Same eyes, same mouth, but something behind them was settled, relaxed, owned. "You're late for processing," he said calmly, like he'd said it 100 times. "Don't make this harder." "I'm not one of you," I snapped. He tilted his head. "Not yet." The mall lights hummed brighter, like the building leaned in to listen. A soft electronic ding echoed from the ceiling. Same tone the directory used whenever you are here refreshed. Shoppers kept moving, bags swinging, footsteps in rhythm. Too perfect, too synchronized. The air smelled like a memory of a mall, not the real thing, like it had been rebuilt from nostalgia and hunger. From a nearby kiosk window, I saw our reflections side by side. We looked identical, except my reflection flickered like a bad signal, while his was clear, grounded. He reached out, resting a hand on my shoulder. His grip was familiar. My own strength turned patient and firm. "Shift change," he said. "You've done your hours. It's easier if you—" I shoved him back. He didn't even stumble. He blinked, surprised but not offended. "Still resisting, impressive," he sighed. "But you already traded time to the anchor. You're part of inventory now. What do you think those hours were?" My jacket felt heavier, full of pages, each stamped with my past. He stepped closer and tapped the pocket. "You took your schedule." His voice softened. "Now we need it back." The crowd of me began to slow. Heads turned. Hundreds of my eyes fixed on me all at once. They didn't blink. The woman's voice hissed in my radio, shredded by fear. "They're synchronized. When they stop moving, the mall is choosing one. Choosing, consolidating, replacing." I backed away, scanning for exit doors. But the entrances were gone. In their place, mirrors, tall, perfect, gleaming. And in each I didn't see myself. I saw empty mannequins waiting for skin. "No," I breathed. No. My uniform clone nodded toward the glass. "That's where we start, empty. Then the mall dresses us in who we were." Who we were. My throat dried. "You're saying," he smiled sadly, "I remember being you. I remember fighting. You'll remember this conversation one day. From my side, the carp in my gut turned cold. Panic roared up, loud enough to drown out the mall's hum. I grabbed him by the collar and slammed him into the kiosk. He didn't fight back. He just met my eyes and said softly, "Don't look at their faces. Look at their hands." My stomach clenched. The woman had said that too. I looked. All around me, the other versions of me stood still. But their hands were wrong. Extra knuckles. Fingers too long. Skin too smooth, like fresh plastic warming into shape. They weren't me. They were mannequins, mid-shift, forming, learning. Borrowing my posture, my movements, my voice, until they could walk like me without seams, and then take the rest. My clone leaned close, voice almost kind. The mall doesn't want copies of us. It wants the original perfected. My blood went to ice. They didn't want to replace me. They wanted to merge us into the perfect version. The mall could keep forever. The mannequin hands twitched in unison. One step forward. 2 steps, all of them, marching toward me with my own. Footsteps. Walk like you belong, the woman whispered frantically. Or they'll walk you. I forced my spine straight, hands loose, eyes bored. Behind me, the promenade directory pinged bright. You are here. The blue dot moved on its own, right toward the return desk, and every version of me turned to follow, all of them smiling now. The mall lights flickered, and in the half-dark, the me beside me was gone, replaced by a mannequin wearing my security badge, and it blinked. The mannequin blinked, not a glitch, not a trick of the lights. Its eyelids, thin plastic stretched over something wet, actually blinked, slow and deliberate, like it had just learned how. Then it smiled with my mouth. Every instinct screamed, "Run!" But the woman's voice coiled through the static in my radio. If you run wrong, they chase. Walk like you belong. Keep your choices small. The mannequin, me but not me, tilted its head exactly the way I did when trying to solve a problem. I felt nauseous. It had already memorized me, perfectly. Around us, the other versions of me, hundreds, kept advancing in synchronized lines. Their steps echoed in the polished floor like a rehearsed parade. The mall lights warmed, and suddenly I understood. The mall was waking up in front of me, not turning on, becoming, breathing, choosing its favorite version of me, and it wasn't me. The promenade directory pinged. The blue dot glided across the map toward the return desk, the center of the mall's throat. My duplicate mannequin extended a hand to me, friendly, patient, like a store worker guiding a confused customer. "Come on," it said in my voice. "Don't make us late." I didn't move. It stepped closer, rubber joints softening into sinew. The other copies adjusted their formation, closing in behind it like a flock. A few still had mannequin skin. Others had nearly human texture. Some looked fully me, but their smiles were too wide, too eager, too hungry. They weren't individuals. They were one thing wearing many drafts. The woman's voice sharpened in my ear. "It's testing your identity. Don't let it decide for you." "How?" I whispered. "Choose something only you would do." The mannequin reached again. "It's easy if you stop fighting." "We all did," I forced a smile. "You want me to belong?" It nodded. "Okay," I said calmly. "Then I'll lead." The copies froze, confused, unsure, because that was something different. They followed orders. They didn't give them. I stepped forward, confident, casual, and the crowd parted like a sea of reflections with delayed reactions. My heart pounded, but I walked like I'd worked here forever, straight toward the return desk. The mannequin clone followed a step behind, cautious now, watching. The mall around us shifted. Store lights dimmed, then brightened as if adjusting the scene. The ceiling vents exhaled warm cinnamon air to calm shoppers that weren't breathing. As we approached the center, the floor tiles subtly changed from glossy white to a dull, scuffed pattern, like countless feet had stood here and never walked away. The return desk stood ahead, perfectly clean, perfectly still, except the slot was open, waiting above it, a sign that hadn't been there before. "Return yourself for full credit." The mannequin stepped up beside me, grinning with my teeth. "You see? It's not scary. It's an upgrade." I glanced back. Every version of me was now circling the desk like a ritual. Their faces serene, their eyes empty. Their bodies loose, relaxed like animals about to be fed. The woman's whisper trembled. "Don't let them feed you to it. Feed it something else." "What?" I hissed. "Anything you don't want to keep." Her voice strained. "But still yours." The mannequin tilted its head. "We're waiting." I looked down at my hands, trembling, human, still mine, and then I knew. Identity wasn't just memory. Identity was choice. I stepped toward the desk. The mannequin sighed in relief. Yes, good." I reached into my jacket and pulled out the book of hours, the pages of my life they had stolen, the time I had lost to jobs, to exhaustion, to being on autopilot. My 20s. My nights, all the versions of me they had already been feeding on. "Here," I said. The mannequin's smile faltered. I slammed the entire stack of stolen hours into the slot. The mole screamed, not through speakers, in its bones. Lights shattered. The floor buckled. The synchronized copies twitched, spasmed, staggering like puppets with cut strings. The mannequin grabbed my arm. Not gentle now, but desperate. "What did you do?" "I made a return," I said through clenched teeth. The floor split open beneath the return desk, revealing a massive living eye staring up from the dark, and it looked exactly like mine. The eye was impossibly large, wet, red-veined, alive, embedded in the darkness beneath the mole, like a god buried under concrete. And it was looking straight at me, not at the mannequin, not at the clones. At me, its iris was my color, its pupil dilated with my breath. It blinked once, and the entire mole shuddered like a lung inhaling. The mannequin beside me dropped to its knees, clutching its head. The other versions of me collapsed like mannequins losing tension, limbs bending wrong, joints twisting backward. Their plastic skin rippled, desperately trying to hold shape. Some tried to crawl away. Some just stared at the eye in worship. The PA system crackled, glitching between voices. Child, woman, my own. Anchor waking. Doors open. All returns final. All returns final. All returns final. Then the intercom died with a hiss like someone slicing a throat. The floor around the return desk split wider, tiles dropping like teeth. The desk tilted and sank. The eye rolled, following me, hungry, not for my body, for my identity, because that's what the mall devoured. Not flesh, self. The woman's voice shot through my radio, urgent, terrified. "It remembers you. That's why you're the only one it can't finish. You still have something it needs." "What?" I shouted over the rumble. "The last piece," she cried. "The part that didn't give up." The mannequin, my perfect clone, staggered to its feet, eyes crazed. "It's awake because of you," it snarled, voice wet and layered with static. "You fed it your hours. You gave it life. It lunged at me. I sidestepped. It crashed to the floor, joints cracking and reforming like bones learning how to be bones. All around us, the mall was transforming. Storefront signs peeled off and rearranged themselves into new words. Lights bent like they were made of rubber. Escalators twisted direction, swallowing themselves. The carousel fountain in the distance spun backward, horses melting into human silhouettes. The eye pulsed. I felt my heartbeat sink with it, once, twice, then pull. My memory stuttered. For a flicker, just a flicker, I forgot my own name. No. I bit down on the inside of my cheek until I tasted blood. Pain. Mine. Real. The mannequin screamed like metal tearing. "Stop fighting!" "You were already one of us." I spun toward it. "If I was one of you, I wouldn't still have a choice." Its face twisted, plastic melting into rage. "You don't have a choice. This place is choice. Every decision you ever made led you here. You belong to it." The word hit something deep. Belong, walk like you belong. The phrase echoed in my skull. That was the trick. Not to obey, not to surrender. To walk with purpose so real the mall couldn't tell if it owned you. Or you owned it. "I don't belong to this place," I said slowly. The mannequin froze. I worked here. Then I smiled, and that means I know the one thing every employee knows. The eye widened. The customer isn't always right. I reached into my jacket and pulled out the hours, my stolen life pages that still burned with memory. I held them over the open pit. The mannequin lunged. "Don't!" Too late. I ripped the pages in half. The anchor shrieked as if I'd stabbed it. The clones convulsed, flickering through faces like changing channels. The mall lights blew out in a wave. The ground lurched, and suddenly I was falling, not down. The eye swallowed the floor. The promenade dissolved. Gravity flipped sideways. I was sliding into the pupil, into the center of the mall's mind. And just before the darkness closed, I heard the woman scream, "If it takes you, take its name." I hit the bottom and stood up inside the mall's memories, surrounded by every trapped soul it had ever worn, all staring at me with my face. When I stood, there was no floor, only memory shaped into ground. A version of the mall stretched around me, but older, softer, wrong. The skylights were tinted yellow like an old photo. The storefronts had names I hadn't seen since childhood: Sam Goody, Radio Shack, KB Toys, and all around me, they stood not mannequins, not copies, people, hundreds of them. Maybe thousands. Some wore uniforms. Some wore winter coats. Some wore prom dresses, hospital gowns, name tags, all frozen mid-step like actors waiting for a cue. Every one of them had my face, except they didn't. I looked closer. Each face started as someone else, then gradually warped into mine the longer I looked. Their features were fading, overwritten, restocked. The mall had been feeding on people for years, not killing them, wearing them. "Where am I?" I whispered. A voice answered behind me, familiar, warm. Too warm. Inventory. I turned. The manager emerged from the haze, not behind the desk, but here, in the mall's core memory. Her body flickered between dozens of uniforms. Cashier, janitor, Santa's helper, security. Each time the outfit changed, her face grew closer to mine. "You shouldn't be here yet," she said gently. "You're not ready." "For what?" "To stop fighting." She stepped forward. The crowd of frozen humans, my reflected legion, shifted slightly, as if drawn toward her like metal shavings to a magnet. "They were like you," she said. "Strong, certain, brave, but this place, it erases bravery. It turns certainty into routine. It turns fighting into clocking in. This place eats identity," I said. "It protects it." She smiled. "It keeps every version safe. We carry all their stories. You think they vanished? No, they live here forever, inside us." I shook my head. "That's not living. It's more than dying," she said softly. "This is immortality. All you have to do is stop insisting you're special." The word hit me like cold water. Special, I remembered. Being 16, working night shift, telling myself I wouldn't get stuck. Being 20, promising I wouldn't lose who I was. Being 30, realizing I already had. The mall didn't create that feeling. It fed on it. The woman's whisper brushed the back of my mind. "Don't let it make you forget you started as someone." The manager tilted her head. "Let me show you something." She touched my forehead with one finger. Memory exploded around us. Suddenly I was at the mall on opening day. Bright, crowded, alive. I saw families laughing, teens running, workers overwhelmed but smiling. Then snap, I was in the same space years later. Empty, dry fountain, closed stores, silence, another snap. I saw a boy alone on a bench staring into nothing. That boy was me, younger, lost, letting the mall swallow a piece of me because it was easier than leaving. "I didn't trap you," the manager said softly. "You stayed." Rage burned in my stomach. "I was a kid." "You're still a kid," she said. "The mall gives structure, identity, purpose. You were drifting." We offered ours. You said yes. The crowd of frozen people took a single, synchronized breath. "Stop fighting," she said. "Let us finish making you who you're supposed to be." The faces around me shifted, each one becoming clearer, more human, more like me. Extending hands, smiling, they wanted me to join, not kill me, not replace me, consume my sense of self. Until I wanted to stay, I felt it, a warmth, a comfort, like laying down in a bed that remembered my shape. Maybe Maybe this was easier. The woman's voice vanished. Silence pressed in. The manager stepped closer, kind eyes glowing softly. "Just say it," she whispered. "Say you belong, and all the weight you carry disappears." I opened my mouth, and then I saw one frozen figure in the back, different from the rest, not looking at me, looking up, looking at something behind me. Slowly, I turned. In the ceiling of Memory Mall, the eye was back, and it wasn't mine anymore. It was changing. It was learning. It was wearing her. The eye blinked, and when it opened, it stared at me with the woman's gaze. And she whispered from everywhere, "I'm not outside anymore." It took me. "You're truly alone." I tried to scream, but the mall swallowed the sound before it left my throat. The eye above me, no longer mine, blinked slowly, stretching across the ceiling of this memory world like a living sky. Its iris shifted, cycling through faces it had consumed. For a moment, it was the manager, then the mannequin, then the woman who had been helping me, then me. I was standing in the center of the mall's mind. The inventory of souls around me, these frozen people shaped into my face, began to stir. Their eyes opened, one by one, hundreds, thousands, all looking at me like I was the last empty space on a shelf. The manager's voice echoed from everywhere, soft and calm. "Identity is heavy, isn't it? You've carried yours for so long. Aren't you tired?" "I'm not yours," I growled. "You will be." She stepped forward from the crowd, but she wasn't fully herself anymore. Her features were melting, blending with mine. Her smile was my smile, stretched wrong. "The mall doesn't steal you," she whispered. "It finishes you." The floor shifted under my feet. Instead of tile, I felt skin, warm, breathing. The entire mall was alive, and I was standing on its back. The woman's voice, my only ally, had warned me. But now, silence. She was gone, consumed. I was alone. The eye pulsed. With each beat, memories were sucked out of me. I felt childhood slip first, faces of people I loved fading like chalk in rain. Then teenage years. Late nights, dreams, regrets, everything that made me me. Thinning, no. I tried to cling to a single memory, my first day at a job, tired but hopeful. It crumbled in my hand like ash. The manager, almost me now, extended a hand. "Just let go. When you stop fighting, it stops hurting." The copies stepped closer in perfect unison, forming a circle around me. I recognized some of their clothing, decades of fashion, generations of people, all absorbed, all reshaped into the mall's favorite template, me. "I won't become this," I said, teeth grinding. "You already are." She leaned in. "Why do you think we all look like you?" "Because you're the final version, the best. The mall has been carving you for years. Every job, every night shift, every hour you gave away without knowing." My knees buckled, the eye dilated, and I felt something reach inside my mind. It wasn't eating me. It was wearing me, every part of me that resisted. It erased, every part of me that obeyed. It kept. My breath synced with the mall's hum. My heartbeat aligned with the anchor's rhythm. My spine straightened on its own. I felt my skin smooth, my edges soften. My thoughts quiet. The manager smiled proudly, her face now almost identical to mine. "See? You belong." The eye lowered, inches above me, massive and all-consuming. Its pupil widened like a door, and I stepped forward, not because I was forced, because I was tired of being someone. The darkness inside the eye wrapped around me like warm air. Voices whispered, "Welcome back. Employee of the month. Walk like you belong." My memories dissolved completely. I felt peace. No choices. No fear. Just purpose. I opened my eyes. I was standing at the return desk again, but this time I was behind it. The mall above was bright and alive, full of shoppers. A fresh security guard walked nervously down the promenade, holding a ring of keys. He looked lost. He looked like I once did. I smiled warmly and rested my hand on the counter. My brass name tag gleamed. Manager. And beneath it, my face. "Hi there," I said gently with perfect customer service tone. "First night?" He nodded, uneasy. "Don't worry." I slid a receipt toward him, the paper already warm. "Just remember one thing." I leaned in close, smiling the way the mall taught me. "Walk like you belong."